a rum shaker?
What is a rum shaker?
I don't even know.
What is that? First of all, let me Google it as we talk. What is that?
This is the jam. I was going to say on Rum Shaker FM, not at all. No, the jam on 98.4, Capital FM, June Gashri, Martin Karaoke, and of course, it's Jam Masters Day. Wednesday is a day we absolutely love, and we're talking to Marie Lora-Mungai. So, Marie, I want us to jump a little bit into a bit of your journey that sort of led you to gather information, okay? Because you've got a couple of platforms on which you share.
Yeah.
Very generously,
Thank you.
a lot of knowledge. I feel like there are three people in my creative career who I really applaud for just being generous with information. You're one of them. Mike Strano is the other. And the other person I want to say is me. No, I want to thank
You
me
share with yourself.
For me, I share
have
with
good
a lot of
ideas.
people.
Yeah.
I do share, but I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm alone in that way, because I do it out of passion. I love teaching. I learn from these creators every time we're sharing. But really, for you and Mike, I think you go over and above what would, and you don't send anybody an invoice. Like, after reading this article, send me a. So thank you, first of all. Let me just say thank you for sharing. Yeah, like a lot of times
I mean, I ask people to subscribe, but it's free.
To read more.
yeah. And well, we are over 12,000 who
Yeah.
read like Hustle and Flow, for example. And so I admit I have even used some of the stats that you share
Please,
to
that's why
teach,
it's for.
right?
Yes,
And say,
yes.
if you guys didn't know there's money in this industry. One of the stats I think you've shared frequently is what UNESCO had shared as the potential for the Africa creative industries.
Yes,
What was
it's
the figure?
actually a stat from. It was only about the film industry,
Okay.
like the 5 million potential of 20 million.
Yes.
It's actually a statistics from the Association of Film Producers.
Okay.
But yes, it was in
Yeah.
the UNESCO report.
So Africa's creative sector contributes for this particular film space, right? Up around 5 billion to the continent's GDP, and supports up to 5 million jobs.
Yeah, I mean, we can never know if we cannot be super
100%
100% sure about
Yeah,
these
it's
numbers.
an estimate.
It's an estimate. What I always say, all of these numbers, there are some people who come up with them. I'm not one of those. I just report them, and share widely. Sometimes we don't know how they're cooked up, but what we should remember is that the direction of travel is correct. It's there, it's growing, and it can certainly employ a lot of people. So I think that's what we should really remember, not so much the number itself.
Yeah. So with that potential, what is it that you would say if you could fix three things, right, for the continent? I mentioned just before this section that during the recently concluded Kalasha, there's a gentleman, I think Jenga is his name, who was saying what he feels the problem is. He said, all these other things are good, but we don't have money. And money is the biggest problem, and if we have money, then all these other things can happen. I don't know if I 100% personally agree with that.
I certainly do not agree with him at
yeah.
all.
So-
If you've been reading a bit what I've written.
Yes.
So my position is the opposite. I mean, we do have the money now. There's a lot of money available sitting on the sidelines. Actually, there's about $3 billion that have been committed in the past few years by the big development finance institutions. I'm not making that up because these are my clients. These are people I work with actually to help them figure out how to deploy this money, like what strategies to use and which financial tools to develop. So this money is available. Afrexim has pledged 2 million. IFC wants to spend, 2 billion, million and billion, it's not the same. 2 billion Afrexim. IFC 1 billion for emerging markets in general, not just Africa, and then there's others. So the money is there. But I can tell you from being on the inside, working with these investors, that the challenge is not the money. The challenge is actually to deploy the cash and to. Why? Because we're not finding enough creative sector companies that are at the level of structuration and development to absorb this money. So you can tell this gentleman that actually it's plenty and plenty of money. What we're lacking are companies that are large enough, structured enough, that have a level of business and financial readiness that is required when you take outside capital. People are not giving you money for free. And unfortunately, Kenya has received so much free money in the past. And I was one of the recipients with XYZ. We raised a lot of soft money, free money from grants and stuff. And this is one of the curses of Kenya because it got people used to free money.
Yeah.
As individuals.
No, as creatives, like there used to be a lot of cash, for you to do something creative or
apply for a grant.
But this is now, this is winding down. This world is ending. You've seen USAID has left, for example, and it has had trickle down. Ripple effects, sorry. And now what development finance institutions want is to see you build sustainable businesses. So now they're looking at you as a business, not as a grant recipient.
Yes.
It's changing everything. And so that's where we are. And so that's what led me to publish my book, which is called Creative Cashflow.
Yeah.
So because really I had reached that point where, we were sitting on all this money and we're not finding enough creative companies to absorb. And I realized, okay, somebody needs to find a way to raise the level of creatives so that their businesses become stronger and more investable. And nobody was doing it. So I'm like, okay.
You did it.
All right, I'll do it. I'll do it.
So I want to use Martin's, shall we say, your podcast?
Yeah.
What can we use as an example?
The Hecklers or Impala, the Impala Club.
Maybe a sports club, you think?
Because a sports club, I feel the business side of it. I don't feel
Is sports part of the...
Sports is part of the creative industries for
Yes,
me.
yes.
Not for everyone, but for me, yes. And why? Because it really operates on the same mechanism as the other creatives. So it's built around human talent and you monetize in similar ways. So, media rights, tickets, merchandising. So yes, very much.
Yeah.
So I want to use it as a bit of an example because you have a 3-angle approach that I want to see if we can give our listener practical.
Sure.
Yeah.
Example.
Okay. So we use Hecklers or we use the Impala?
Impala.
Let's use Impala Club. Rugby club. That's how old now?
It's over 70. It's probably
70.
60,
Let's say above 60. Above 60.
60, yeah.
Above 60 years. What are the things that you look out for in the formal, when you say formal structure? So the company, let's say a company exists.
Yes.
Yeah, so there are very basic things which are the legal and financial basic documents that you need to have. You need to be registered. You need to have a clear ownership. We need to know who owns what. You need to have no shady people in there because in the due diligence this will be
Revealed. There are shady
And I'm saying this
people.
because you chose an example in sports.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we're in sports in Kenya, right? So make your own conclusion. But so that's important. Then we need to know that you have clean financials. So we need to see the historical financials, at least 3 years more is better, that have been audited by an accountant, so we know it's correct. We need to know that you've made money. Basically, if you want to raise, you need to show that you're able to make money. If you are losing money, nobody's going to want to invest in you unless it's somebody who has other reasons, like prestige or whatever. But normally, the rule is you need to show that you're
profit making.
Yeah, and you're on a good trajectory and there's potential. And then you need to come up also with a strategy and a plan on how you're going to increase these earnings. For a specific business, such as a sports business, but any creative business, what I advocate for in the book, Creative Cashflow, is that you need to build several revenue streams because we're in such a volatile environment where we have so many challenges. And creative business can be tricky. So for you to be safe and to grow, you need to have 2, 3, 4 revenue streams in parallel. So for you, could be membership fees. It could be
Merchandise.
yes, although people don't buy a lot of merchandise in Africa, but if you can prove that your people buy it and you can make profit, sure. Perhaps you have some games where there are tickets. You have sponsorships. Maybe you have your venue that you can rent out when you're not using it.
Fundraising tournaments.
So that's events or other events. You can find other ways to monetize your community. That's what people think less about. So I don't know how many people come to, what's your community like? The people who come plus the members, what is it? Are we looking at?
1,000.
1,000.
1,000 people.
1,000.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's something for any creative business. This is your community. Who are they? What do they want? What do they like? How can they engage further? And that's different for any community. But, they might be willing to, come to meet and greets with some players, and they may be willing to enter a raffle for this, and you can make a bit of money.
Yeah.
Or, maybe there's some business networking or events, other events they might want to pay for.
Like speed dating for what they do during the day when they're not watching sports on the weekend.
Anything.
Yeah,
It just depends on who these people are. But so that's where you need to stretch your brain and go look further than just like sponsorships and tickets or there could be other thing, and that's valuable for any creative business. Yeah.
Okay. Your second angle, you call it that African creative entrepreneurs leave money on the table because they don't speak the language. What's this language? What is the language?
So I call it financialese. That's the language they don't speak,
Financialese.
which is the language of investors and financiers.
Yes.
Us creatives, we speak creative-ish, right? So there's a way we understand each other. We
Yes.
know what means what. We know the context and all of this. Financial people, they speak spreadsheets,
Yes.
and they speak revenue, they speak margins, all these kind of terms that are completely unknown to creatives. And that's normal, that's not their background. But if you or the person in charge of this within your team, if you have a team, is not able to speak the same language, unfortunately, the financiers, they're not going to try to understand what you mean. They're going to think that you don't know what's happening. They're not going to make the effort to speak your own language. You have to learn theirs, right?
Yes.
So that's what I do in the book. I actually explain all the things that you need to know what it means. Just a simple thing that I've seen many times. I've seen investors say to a creative, "Oh, we need your business plan." Okay.
They're like, what is that?
The creative Googles, like, what's a business plan? And then they come up with a 30-page Word document explaining what they think the business is like. You cannot fold them. No one has explained what it's supposed to mean. And if you Google, you might find this as a template. What the investor actually means is that they want a profit and loss spreadsheet with forecast over 3 years and several scenarios, like low, medium, and high. How are you supposed to know that?
If you don't speak financially.
Nobody's telling you. I'm telling you. It's in the book.
Yeah.
So when they want a business plan, they want to see a spreadsheet with numbers.
Nice.
This book.
The creative cash flow.
Where is it?
You're saying already.
So it was launched last week. It's available online for the moment on the website of the book, creativecashflow.africa. Also, you can find it on Amazon Kindle.
For how much?
So it's $24.99.
It's about 3,000 something.
If you go on the website creativecashflow.africa, I'm using Seller, which is an African platform, to sell it, and it will automatically give you in shillings what it is, and you can use M-Pesa to buy.
Awesome. So
We'll come back and talk about the third
SMEs.
angle.
Yeah.
Because SMEs, if you are listening, hey, and you're part of this creative industry, I think there's a wealth of knowledge here with our Jam Master in studio, Marie Lora-Mungai, and we'll be telling you a little bit more and posting where you can get access to this book and the knowledge in it. But if you are an SME, there are so many other things that an SME owner will be thinking and worrying about. Do they have health insurance? Do they have insurance over the things that they have bought, the people in their office? They're worried about day to day, clients haven't paid. Do we have insurance to be able to deliver products, and yet the cash flow is not flowing, the cash is not flowing. So many of these issues you are better placed than even us to know about. So we want to get your feedback, we want to get your views, and we want your voice to matter. So please run onto the Capital FM website. There's a link to a survey. I promise it will not take you more than 2 minutes. But if you are an SME in this country of Kenya, doing the thing, you wake up every morning and you choose to do the thing, then we want to hear from you. Your actual problems and solutions might help to solve future bigger problems. We'll be back with our Jam Master in studio. This is the Jam. Time now for the sports news. I hope Impala is listening.
And Arsenal, because we're in a final. Where
first
is
time
Davis in 20 years?
He's enjoying.
He's enjoying what? It's time for
Not
the
being
news.
here to hear you.
In Capital Newsbeat this hour.
Kindiki vows government will ensure lasting security in Kitui. Mudavadi says Nairobi summit could redefine African global role, and Chad says 23 persons killed in Boko Haram attack.
More in Capital Newsbeat.
Capital Sports Update, where sports is taken seriously.
Kenya Amateur Wrestling Federation President Anthony Kariuki has backed the country to perform well at this year's Dakar Youth Olympics. Kariuki says their objective is to build on their successful outing at the just concluded Africa Wrestling Championships in Alexandria, Egypt.
This will help us prepare for Dakar Youth Games, where we have qualified at least two, and especially in the beach. And we are grateful to the government for the support. 8 medals is good performance by the youth, and we are very, very good.
Team Kenya won 8 medals at the continental competition, including 1 gold, 3 silver and 4 bronze. Elsewhere, Kenyan swimmer Sarah Mose won bronze on day 1 of the Africa Aquatic Swimming Championships in Oran, Algeria this morning. Mose clocked a national record of 57.49 seconds to finish third in the women's 100 meters freestyle, as Uganda's Gloria Muzito and Zimbabwe's Paige van der Westhuizen came first and second respectively. The competition runs until Sunday, with Kenya represented by 12 swimmers across different categories. In news-making international headlines, Iran's Football Association President Mehdi Taj has warned that they will turn back from the United States should they be disrespected by immigration officials, as was the case in Canada recently. Taj insists the U.S. must show respect for the Islamic Guard Corps even as Iran prepares to travel to the country for next month's World Cup. The football chief comments came after he reportedly led a delegation of Iranian officials in turning back
and gentlemen, the reason why Mother's Day eclipses Father's Day is these two. The father, nameless, was telling us to be mannerless and shake our rumps, which is also another thing for your behind. Your bum bum.
Derriere.
Yeah, so shake it, rump shaker. And he was repeating himself because just shake your rump would have been easy.
Yeah.
The wife, Wahoo, comes and sings a beautiful song called Sweet Love for their first daughter, Tumiso. It's a beautiful song. Dedicated to their daughter, as the husband is saying, we be motherless. and everything. This is why Mother's Day is important.
I'm going to say, Martin, that at the time that Nameless was telling us to be mannerless.
They were creating.
He was rhyming, first of all. Nameless, so mannerless.
Oh.
It's a creative juices that were flowing.
Also, they were creating.
And also they were creating, growing their family, in other words.
Said subject.
Said subject of the Sweet Love song.
The Sweet Love, yes.
Thank you for that song. And of course, for all the mummies out there, we're looking forward to celebrating you and spoiling you rotten this entire month. And one of the ways we do that is through knowledge and wisdom and people living experiences, good or bad, and then finding lessons, I guess, is like the constant lesson, right? The constant mission, I want to say. So even if you had a really bad experience, what can you learn from that bad experience? Our Jam Master in studio is Marie Lora-Mungai. Today she's, I'm going to say, just dropping nuggets of wisdom.
We all know we know why she's among us.
We know why she's among us.
I'm known for dropping nuggets.
Yeah.
Apparently I drop nuggets.
Nuggets. You drop nuggets and like your hashtagable nuggets. I feel like we should be able to search you and there's a whole bunch of like, she is coining this phrase and that phrase.
You can do that now if you're smart a bit.
Yeah. If you ask the right chatty to be your friend. So one of the things you have said that I think is really powerful because I think a lot of people, especially in Kenya, can relate to it. You said that visibility without revenue architecture is just expensive fame. First of all, it's a nice slap on the face for those who are just famous but broke.
Well, there's a phrase in the book that I coined, which I call prestige poor.
Prestige poor.
How many of us have known what that is, right? And there's so many on the continent. I'm very proud of myself for that one. You know the thing where you win all the awards, you're all over the press, people know your name, you do interviews and all of that. And then there's no cash. That is the reality of most creatives on the continent.
This is creatives from back in the day till today. From Mozart and all those guys.
Exactly.
To now.
That's the reality. And so we shouldn't confuse this because fame doesn't mean revenue, doesn't mean money, right? But you know what? Even investors confuse this. Because even the smartest investors, who are people who have been trained in finance and all of this, when they start looking at the creative industries, they completely forget all the rules that they've known.
Look at numbers, the wrong numbers.
Because they get completely starstruck, and they don't understand the creative space, so they think that the rules of business in the creative space are different. They are not. It's just the environment. You have to learn the subtleties and the nuances, but business is business. And so that everybody's very much confused by that, visibility versus viability.
And that's a nice message I want to say to like corporates who are always looking for influencer numbers, for example, that don't necessarily translate or convert into...
it's more complicated than that.
It's
not
way
just
more
a following.
complicated. Because also we can buy followings. This is the other thing. That's the other side of the business.
We've been talking about this with June and her events and her friends, having a small family around her. There's viability for her if you're looking at selling something that looks like June. Instead of telling June to, smell of vodka.
Why would, and then say it like this and do it like this. You're right. I think the nuances, I think, are what we're highlighting. And I think how to value that, because this is sort of my next question then. I appreciate the architecture you're speaking about, and I think it's what you were talking about. Learning the language, the financialese, learning what you need to put in place, legitimate people, legitimate structures. But then there's also a valuation conversation that I think we haven't had enough in Africa. I want to argue when it comes to like the value of one's intellectual property. It's more about how I feel.
So that's a very good question, and let me address this, and it's also in the book, because there's a lot of confusion around this idea of intellectual property that is worth something and we're
Yes.
not being paid for it and all of that. Intellectual property, what is it? So any time that you create something, you're the owner of that creation, there's
Yes.
intellectual property, but it doesn't mean that it has intrinsic value.
Value, correct.
It only has value if it's generating recurring revenue. For example, if you've created a TV show and people are buying it, the value of it is how much people are paying for it right now and how much it will generate over the lifetime of that property of that show. Or if someone is willing to buy that intellectual property, let's say a music catalog, right? And we've seen there's some big deals in the world that has been done of artists that have sold their catalog, right?
Yeah.
So if it's generating revenue, or if you have a willing buyer, then that's the value of your intellectual property. If you have a script lying in a drawer, if you have a song that no one wants to listen to, if you have a fashion design that nobody's buying, there's no value to that. I'm sorry, you know.
So that's your ego there.
Yeah.
And that you made something. Well
You
done.
made something. You can be
something.
happy and proud of
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
You finished something, but that doesn't mean there's commercial value to it. And that I will repeat this and shout it on the rooftops because people are confused. Nobody's owes you money because you're creative. You've made some piece of art. Nobody owes you money. It's money is, used in transactions of value. And if someone values what you've done for a certain amount of money, that is the value that it has.
So you cannot be entitled to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also like to say, don't confuse your value with what's in the budget. Like, there's also that.
Because but then that's also like a philosophical
Yes.
questions or psychological question.
Yes.
Because people shouldn't tie their personal value of who they are as a human being to the commercial value of something they've produced. It's not the
created,
same
yeah.
thing
Yeah,
as a human
yeah,
being.
yeah.
Even if your stuff doesn't sell, you still have value as a human
Yes,
being,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes also as creatives we can conflate all of that. So if you've made a film and someone is only willing to license it for 3,000 shillings, that doesn't mean that your
Your
worth
value is 3,000
it's just
shillings.
the market
Yes.
today
Yeah.
values that piece of content at that money, at that amount, for many reasons that are out of your control, right? But you have to work within the confines of your market.
Auntie Marie, thanks. Thank you for saying that. I think there are people who needed to say that.
The truth is harsh.
It's harsh, yeah. They needed to hear, and confusion can be remedied. I think that's what we're saying. If you just learn. So I want to take you to your angle number 3, so we can close our conversation on how to solve Impala's problems.
Because we also don't want to reveal too much
Yeah.
about this. We want people to
buy the book, but it's
there's
just
a
enough.
lot more
There's a
in
lot
it.
more in
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what is the third angle? Because you usually say if one has a live case study, like in this case, what's the final thing you would ask these guys to consider as they're figuring out how to be business ready, to be able to receive, how to find multiple streams of income? What else would you tell our Impala peeps?
Yeah, so we've looked at really just the legal and financial structure, the
Yes.
basic paperwork that you need to have.
Yes.
We looked at your the financial health of your business, so that you need to be making revenue and be profitable, and then perhaps the next thing, and because everybody's always asking about raising money or raising financing, is understanding what is the right type of financing for you. The first thing I want to say is not everybody needs to raise money. The goal is to have a sustainable business, and if your business makes money and you can grow based on your own revenue, that's good as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually you're in an even stronger position if you can generate your own cash,
Yes.
right? But let's say that, so to raise money, you need to have a very, very specific and good reasons, because whoever's going to give you the money is going to ask you what you're going to do with it. So it needs to be in service of a particular growth strategy. Let's say you're a fashion designer and you need more machines because you cannot service the demand. That is a very clear reason why you might need some money. Or let's say you are a club and you need to refurbish your
Training center.
your location because it's getting old and some people are not sticking around. That's also a very good reason, right? And maybe you are not able to use your own revenue and cash flow to do this. These are good reasons. Then, so once you've established you have a good reason and you know how to make money, you need to understand what kind of business you have, because the kind of investment that you might go look for depends on the nature of your business. And there's been a lot of confusion in the marketplace in the past decade because of the rise of venture capital, VC. And a lot of people have confused raising money with raising VC. Venture capital is a specific tool that is made for companies that have exponential growth, which means that their revenue can grow faster than the team, so than their cost.
Yes.
And typically this would be a tech-centric company, a tech startup. The reality is 98% of creative sector companies in the world, not just in Africa, are not creative tech startups. They are SMEs. They are your mom and pop shop that have revenues, that have a business that's profitable, but they still need financing. These are not good targets for VC. If you approach a VC, you'll be turned down, and they will not even explain to you why. And you'll be wasting time trying to figure out what happened. You are not the right company for this. If you are an SME and you have, recurring source of income, the first port of call for you is actually a bank loan, all right? Because you make money, you just need a bit of advance. You don't need to give a share of your company for this. So historically, banks have not liked to lend to creatives for many reasons.
Yeah.
But this is changing very rapidly. Within the finance space and within the creative finance space, there's a lot of chatter around this. Banks are now creating products for creatives. Here in Kenya, you have Heva Fund that has partnered with, what's the name of this bank? NCBA to create specific products for creatives. And there's going to be more and more of that. And these are products that will give you, for example, what's called invoice factoring. Let's say you're a film producer and you've sold your movie to whatever, Canal Plus, Showmax, but they're not paying you the whole amount now, and you need to pay your cast and crew.
Yes.
You can take that contract, take it to a bank and say, okay, my buyer is somebody that's known and that's, legit, and the bank can give you part of that money like
upfront.
60%, for example, and you can pay your costs. This before was not available to creatives. It's becoming now available to creatives.
Okay.
So these are the things you should look at.
Thank you. Hey, Teacher Marie.
You got me. I have two screens.
Doing research.
By the way, people, that's why I wrote the book. So that you don't have to just grab the small nuggets when I'm here. Just
read
throw
the
it
book.
there.
It's a tool.
I give all the details, all the names, where the money is, how to access it, what to look for.
God bless you.
Creative.
God bless you.
By the way,
we are going to shout about the book. We're going to go into the news, but we'll do a little clip with you, just telling people where the book is and how we can access it, and where which social media platforms and your LinkedIn platform to follow. All right. Irene Mwangi is here. It is 5 o'clock. Time now for the news on 98.4 Capital FM. My brain is buzzing, everybody, with nuggets of wisdom from Marie Lora-Mungai.
Capital News Beat.
Kindiki vows government will ensure lasting security